Okay. Hello, Catalina.
Hello. How are you?
Good. So happy to have you here.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. For our guests, we were just admiring each other's backgrounds, the art on the back
Yes.
there and all that. So it's always fun to see everyone's
Artwork is
interesting.
beautiful.
It
Yes.
is. So I usually like to start the conversations off just with your journey. When you think about your life and all that you've been through, and in looking at your website, I've seen you've been through a lot in your life. So what would you say has changed the entire trajectory of your life? Where does that story begin for you?
What has changed the trajectory? That there's been so many different trajectories, right?
Yeah.
We live so many different timelines. So really starting from when I was born to a 16-year-old drug dealing dad and a 23-year-old prostitute mom.
Mm.
I always make a joke that perhaps I was conceived in a 65 Pontiac Catalina. It's a working theory. I don't think they were on Catalina Island. But I went home with dad, and that's when I witnessed a lot of abuse.
Mm.
I was victim to a lot of abuse. I had both hips dislocated
Mm.
due to an abusive uncle. I had a stepmother that would lock me in closets, starve me. She liked to play a little game where she would keep me on one side of the busy street in Brooklyn. I was born in Brooklyn, Coney Island. So she would keep me on one side, tell me to stay there, and I was about 3 years old. And then she would cross the street and motion me to come over, and then I would go into oncoming traffic. And so screeching cars, New Yorkers screaming their heads off, cursing, the whole 9 yards. And I can remember that vividly, and it's amazing the healing that I've done since. My body no longer, I just noticed that right now, lifetime. Just noticed that
Does
my body didn't tense, and
mm,
that might be a first. That's pretty cool. Oh,
that
thank you for
is.
that experience. But normally, even just speaking about that, my body would just tense up.
Yeah.
And so, she would come running over very concerned, where'd you go? I've been looking for you. And I was so confused as a child. Like, you told me to come, like, you told me to stay here. So just confusion, chaos. Just, I learned to withdraw very early on.
Hmm.
I learned to observe and scan the room for danger. And then my body would tense up. Even though I couldn't physically fight, my body would just tense up, and then my mind would go elsewhere. So disassociation is what that is.
Hmm.
So that was one trajectory in life, right? And then thankfully, my stepmother had a beautiful sister, my Aunt Diane,
Hmm.
who was more of a mom to me when she was around, and she knew that her sister was going to eventually kill me, but she was definitely putting me in danger.
Hmm.
Um, and so she talked my father into putting me into foster care, into a foster home that was right down the road from her in upstate New York, Catskill regions. I don't know if you know where
Hmm.
Poughkeepsie is,
Hmm. I do.
but around there, Middletown, Pine Bush is where I went to. And my Aunt Diane lived right around the corner from, well, up there, it's right around the corner. It's probably about 2 or 3 miles
Mm.
from the foster family. And so on my seventh birthday, I went into my first foster home. And I actually went there with reprieve, like thinking that I was going to, at that age, I'm 7 years old, but I was excited almost and
Hmm.
relieved and feeling like, okay, safety. Maybe this is safe. And I was wrong. That was just a different type of abuse that happened there. Um, Cinderella in real life. And I was speaking to my friend the other day because I was preparing for a speech that I just did the day before yesterday here locally in St. Pete, Florida. And I was telling her kind of the things that I went through, and I don't really often speak about my life. I just recently started speaking about it outside of the foster care system.
Hmm.
And she was like, I never knew you went through that. I've never like, I've known you for decades. I never would even think that you, and So it's very important for us to be speaking about things like this so that way we don't all feel alone and we
Right.
don't think that we're the only ones going through things, right? So the foster care system has a lot of negatives,
Hmm.
and I have the honor of working with my foster care agency now
Oh, that's
and
awesome.
looking at my records and finding the gaps and where does the training need to happen for these caseworkers and for the foster parents and bio parents and everybody, because we're all human,
Hmm.
whether we have a lived-in foster care experience or we have, any kind of trauma in our life. We're human at the end of the day, and so I'm very passionate about healing.
Oh, wow, what a
And yeah.
story.
So that was one path. So one trajectory went from birth to foster care. Now I'm in foster care. And for
Uh-huh.
most of that, I lived with one family, on and off. I would sometimes get a place somewhere else, but I would always go back to this family because that's where my dad left me. And I
Hmm.
thought that if he was coming to get me and I wasn't there, then I would miss the boat. And
Hmm.
so my social workers thought I liked that family. It wasn't a matter of that. It was a matter of I was just holding on to that hope that he would return for
Come
me.
back. Oh,
And so obviously those of us who did not grow up with parents or a dad, the abandonment wound. And
yeah.
so we grow up as adults getting into relationships with the wrong people because of that early on wound. And I
Hmm.
think many of us as adults, we are really children, the brain of a child and our trauma walking around in an adult body. And that is why I became so passionate about healing. It was late in the game, probably not until about 2 years ago that I went deep diving into healing.
Hmm.
And that was another trajectory. So I've got so many different chapters. We all have different
Yeah.
chapters, but going through foster care really kind of laid the groundwork as to who I would become and how I would live my life.
Hmm.
Now I know subconsciously,
Hmm.
just programmed, walking around thinking all the thoughts and opinions of those that developed me and
Hmm.
programmed me. And unfortunately, those were foster parents and teachers and bus drivers and siblings, foster siblings. But, most of what I heard was you are useless, you're worthless, you're not good enough.
Hmm.
Who do you think you are? Do you think you're going to have a house with a white picket fence? Go back to the gutter that you crawled out of. Like these are all statements that still are embedded
Yeah.
in my brain. And
And
it's
then
like, that's,
untangling from them
yeah,
too. Hmm.
yeah. And so many of us are just walking around with these thoughts of feeling like we're not good enough, but facts are not feelings and feelings are not facts. And the facts are we can reprogram our brain and we
Hmm.
can shed the layers and get down to who we really are at the core, find out whose thoughts they belong to, get rid of them, and start reprogramming ourselves. Now, my confidence is, I mean, I don't knock on wood, I'm pretty unshakable, I would say.
Yeah. After resilient and everything, after all you've gone through, what
Yeah.
was I know you mentioned your journey started, you said about 2 years ago. What was that, I guess, that turning point moment for you?
Yeah, so living 13 years in foster care and then going through, I went to college and then I, had a couple of different relationships, long-term relationships here and there. I have two beautiful children,
Hmm.
with their dad, and then I got into another relationship thereafter. My daughter was about 2.5 and my son was about 4, something
Hmm.
around that age. And 2 years ago, that person that I had spent close to 2 decades with decided that he no longer wanted to be with me
Hmm.
and decided that he wanted to go on to his next chapter with somebody else. And that
Hmm.
person is a former friend of mine.
Oh my
So
goodness.
it's been quite, I was blindsided. I thought that I was going to die with this person. I literally would have done anything for this person. And I felt safe with him for the first time in my entire life of feeling like
Mm.
I had somebody. But the whole entire time in the relationship, now that I look back, hindsight is 2020. I was raging the whole time. I was not happy.
Mm.
I was pretending to be someone I wasn't.
Mhm.
And so 2 years ago, when he decided that it was real, like we're done, and I felt it, I literally felt like this energy leave my body. And I don't know if you've ever felt that, but it feels like this physical pain that it's just like energy leaving. I thought I
Very
was like, my
reflective.
soul is leaving my body.
Mm.
And I started studying metaphysics, probably about, gosh, my kids were about 10 and 8.5. So it was quite some time. There was this bird that had flown, and we went to Comic-Con, and there was this
Mhm.
bird that flew into the window, and so I raced out with them to go and save it. And I picked it up, and this bird, I love animals, and this bird
Mhm.
was in my hand, and it was still alive, and I was trying to figure out what to do, and I felt it die in my hand.
Mm.
And my left hand and arm went numb, tingly, and then numb. And that experience had me really, because I physically felt it and I watched it, my kids saw it, and I was just like, what just happened? And so I
Wow.
started studying physics and energy and how we are all energy and all of that. And it was just so amazing to me. Anyway, how that correlates to this is that's what I felt. I felt like that part of my arm that happened with that bird, I felt like happened with my entire body.
Wow.
And
Goosebumps.
so, yeah,
Mm.
it was like a death or awakening. I'm not sure which. It's, they say that you have to die first in order to be reborn type of thing in
Mhm.
spirituality. And so I guess that's the part where it was just, I was being ripped from that timeline that I was so comfortable in and
Mhm.
just making myself stay there. And even though the universe was showing me the loop and showing me the same lessons over and over and over again, where this relationship is not for you, this relationship is
Mm.
not for you. And every single time I would dig my heels in and be like, nope, this is where I'm staying because I am loyal. And that's what I do. I stay loyal.
Mm.
And there was no choice in it anymore. And so I starved myself for about, I wound up in the hospital. I didn't eat a
Oh,
morsel of
wow.
food for about 2 weeks. And people could be like, after all you've been through, right? Like I've been through
You
human
so much.
trafficking. I skipped over that part,
Mm.
but being reintroduced to my biological mother, not always a great idea when you're in foster care to be reintroduced to biological parents, because she just saw me as a commodity and she owed people. And so I was payment.
Oh my
So I
God.
had always been useful to people. And I had always felt like I had to earn my place. And that was not different in this relationship. I was constantly overpouring, overgiving, and I was angry about it sometimes. So we would fight. It wasn't no picnic for this guy either all the time. You know, almost 2 decades. Of course, two people staying together for that long, it's going to be messy. It's not always one person's fault.
Right.
Um, but I do know that I self-abandoned.
Mm.
And that is something that many women do in my experience from what I see. And when I began to heal and really go through that experience of starving myself, which I just physically couldn't eat. And then I started doing protein shakes, dropped a whole bunch of weight. And then I started getting, and then I had a life coach. I went to TikTok and I started watching all these, life coaches. And there was one that
Mhm.
I resonated with, Sarah Falciani, and she wouldn't see me unless I got a therapist. She's like, I'm
Mm.
concerned for you. I know my scope of practice. You need somebody there, and I will not see you unless you. So kudos to her
I
because
was
I
gonna,
feel
that's
like a
awesome.
lot of
Yeah.
life coaches probably wouldn't have done
Wouldn't have
that
done that.
because they
No.
lead with ego, many of them. And
Hmm.
she didn't. She was really concerned and she said, I will help you. I will be there, but you need to do XYZ for yourself.
Right.
Promise me you'll do that. And I did. She was way more helpful than my therapist was.
Kudos to her, but I could, because they're trained by the book. They're not, yeah, I could see it.
Yeah, it was,
Uh-huh.
yeah, that was, she helped me more than any of my therapists that I've ever had. But I do believe that, my best friend that I'm actually here, she's going for her master's in social work. She's
Hmm.
going to
Okay.
help so many people because I know who she is. And so there's just few and far behind how,
Mm.
the good therapists. I've been to them all my life. But this life coach was amazing for me, and she made me peel back the layers and do my mantras, listen to HC music. I just gathered and I was like, okay, I'm going to build my own village to get me through this because I thought I
Mm.
was going to live in this home forever with this guy. State of Florida, never married. There is no common law.
Mm.
Um, his house, everything, he made sure to keep
Ah.
everything in his name. I would ask to take over a bill. He would never let me.
Mm.
Calls himself, pro-feminist. I call him faux feminist now because
Yeah,
how
that's
do
a good one. I
you,
like that.
you know what I mean? Like, how do you have a girl for that long, never commit, don't let her have and how did you think that was going to affect me when I now have to leave? Well, he said, you don't have to leave. Oh, I'm going to just live here while you
Mm.
go on dates.
That whole
And that's what I
situation. Yeah.
did for almost 2 years. It was
Wow.
painful,
Oh
painful.
my God. More trauma.
So,
Oh my God.
yeah, that was more brutal than anything else when you're a child, you're resilient, you kind of don't know what's going on.
Right.
When I left my children's father, I did a poll. I would interview people on the street. If I overheard that they had parents that were divorced, how old were you? And the general consensus is do it when they're young, not when they're older, because children have
Mm.
no resilience, they forget, they're not aware of everything. Whereas the teenagers whose parents divorced really had a hard time. They had a very
Hmm.
difficult time with that. And so I guess parallel to that, I had been through so much trauma in my life, but this traumatic experience was just a boyfriend breaking up with me.
I know, but it's
And it was devastating. Devastating. I
had to
helped him
be
build his business. He was there for me at certain times too. Like he was my family, and now I felt abandoned again.
20
And
years too.
yeah, almost 2 decades. It was this January 19th would have been 17 years.
Wow.
Yeah. And so thankfully, I learned who I am.
Dude.
And I put all of my giant, I know you're in New York and I'm from New York, I'm Brooklyn born. All my New York Giants stuff went up on Craigslist or Facebook Marketplace. I learned I do not like football. I do not want to watch football ever again in my life. I don't. Do you know how many 5 hour Sundays or 7 hour Sundays I wasted? You know what
Super
I do on
Bowls
a
and all
Sunday
the
now?
stuff.
I paint. I go
Yep.
for picnics. I enjoy a museum. I live life.
And
I
enjoy yourself.
Yeah. And I love life now. And I can't imagine going back. And the girl that he's with, I knew her. She was a friend. And she's not a friend like we were best
Mm.
friends and that girl code and stuff like that. We had hung out a bunch of times and she knew that we had broken up and I thought she is a beautiful person inside and out. And I know this is really weird for me to be able to say. A lot of people are like, my best friend is angry for me. She's like, down with her. And I'm like, no, they make sense.
Mm.
She's in the
You,
gym. She's like a bodybuilder. He always went,
uh-huh.
he is too. He's powerlifter, whatever. So they have that in common. I also don't want to spend 5 hours in the gym either.
Right.
Let me do my exercise, get in and out, get out, and that's not my focus of my life. My focus of my life is living and painting and creating and speaking and helping and nature and colors and animals, and if she wants to spend her Sundays doing that and be with a small
Football.
business owner and she does her thing, that then you guys are aligned. I am not aligned. I have a
Mm,
very, now that I know who I am, there is a very specific list of what I'm looking for in a man, very
hmm
specific characteristics. First of all, be genuine, kind, authentic. When you walk into a room, make people feel good. Like I want a man that compliments a woman, at the register, or,
hmm
I just, that confidence and that just love for humanity.
hmm
And I learned that in order to attract that, you have to be that.
Right.
And
Right.
so I'm looking for that mirror, and that just makes me become the better version of me every
hmm
day. And I
Oh,
feel like
wow.
that's what a relationship should be, is expansion of one another,
So
not
true.
dependence on one another.
Wow, so true. What a story. You have been through a lot. What helped carry you through? I know you mentioned your aunt.
Yeah,
What
my
other
aunt,
hmm
well, here's another part of the story that there's just so many different facets and what shaped me, because I know that one part is like, what woman was in your life. She lived right around the corner, and so I felt like I was going to be safe there. And if she had lived, then maybe I would have, but she died, would have been a month and a half after I entered that home.
That's
And
sad.
nobody told me why she wasn't coming around anymore. I was just told she wouldn't be around anymore. And so then I would walk 2 miles, 2 or 3 miles down to their house where my cousins lived, my uncle, she lived there. We would cook, and it was just family. And I walked and
hmm
they slammed the door in my face. And I thought it was my fault. For years, I thought it was my fault until I think I was about 17 years old when I found out the truth, that it was my dad who gave her drugs
hmm
and she overdosed. And they were poison drugs, something like that. And so,
Um,
of course, the family, they see me, from my dad, and they just don't want to. And so I got
and
the
yeah.
brunt of that or whatever. And as a little girl, I didn't understand. I didn't know why they didn't allow me into that home anymore. And where was she? And years later, so I carried that guilt with me for so long. Um, yeah.
Wow. Wow.
Wow.
I
I don't usually get emotional,
wow.
but
Oh,
so
you
what did carry me through?
I was all that
Music.
you've been through. Okay, I was gonna you poor
Music.
thing, you so
Music carried
much.
me through. Dance and music. I would say that we all know who we are at our core.
hmm
I believe that. Before people tell me who tell us who we should be, you should be a doctor, you should be an attorney, you should be a wife, you should be this, you should be that. Don't be an artist because they don't make money, be this instead. Before all of those thoughts are embedded and programmed into our brain, who is it that we want it to be? Or what is it that we find ourselves gravitating towards?
hmm
And it was always music and always dance for me,
mm
and nature. And I would go out into the woods and I would do these choreography dances and just have music in my head all the time before phones existed and all that stuff. I would just hum and sing in the woods and just dance and
mm
pretend that I was just some character living out there by myself, just dancing with nature. And
mm
I'm happy to say I do that same stuff all the
Still
time
stuff.
now.
Oh,
I
that's
reverted
great.
back to that,
It
and it's
is
working
great.
great.
It's great to like tap back into our inner child because
Yeah.
it definitely helps after we go through all the hard things in life, just finding some of that peace again.
Yeah.
I I wonder, was there anybody in your family that was very in tune with nature, maybe like a grandmother or aunts, and just kind of curious of your parents' story, because what they went
Yeah, I
through.
would be too. I do know that I'm not sure if your listeners are into, the woo-woo stuff. I wouldn't say it's woo-woo. I see the magic, and I do believe that I am magical, and I do believe I am here for a purpose. And now that I have slowed down and I listen to my intuition through meditation, through HZ frequencies, through ecstatic dancing and creativity. And I really I have the luxury now. I'm on my own for the first time in decades, right? Have my own beautiful apartment with sunlit window, like the sun just pours through my windows onto these hardwood floors. The building was built in 1890 something, or
Mm,
just very,
I
very
love
old
old
building,
buildings. Hmm.
and it's just beautiful. And I manifested that. I have a journal where I wrote in that journal what a day in my life looked like 2 years ago. And
Hmm.
I just moved here this past June. So this June will be 1 year of me living in this space. And what I wrote in the journal is almost exactly how I'm living now. The only difference
Wow.
is my kitchen didn't have a white countertop island, but my friend did give me a tabletop marble white that I
Wait.
put in my kitchen.
Oh, that's great.
And so it does seem crazy. I call it magic, and it is magic, but yeah, to be able to heal and slow down and you get to see what life really is. We all should be tapping into our inner child to heal.
Hmm.
And I'm sorry, I forgot what the question was.
No, no, you're good. No, you're good. I was just curious, like, that's beautiful though, but just thinking about your parents, like I'm just curious, do you feel like you
Ah,
carried anything from your grandparents, like the love for nature and then just curious of your parents' story. Yeah, what how they
and that's where I was going. So
hmm.
there's generational curses
Yep.
and generational trauma that I have definitely broken. I'm the first in my family to graduate
Yeah.
high school.
Uh,
I am the first in my family to, I think, break and slow down and be able to use discernment and say no and teach my daughter, to say no. No is a full sentence.
hmm.
And to use discernment and listen. It's so funny. She texted me this text that her friend texted her, "Hey, I saw your mom. She looks so good. She looks so happy." And so my daughter screenshot that. She sent it to me. But above that, I see my daughter texting her like this little box there, and it
Uh,
says, "It's okay. Just listen to your body." And I was like,
oh, she's saying mom's words.
it was amazing. And I was like, yes.
Oh, I
It was
love
so
that.
great.
Oh,
And
shows
yeah,
the
and I
work.
think I'm Puerto Rican. I
Hmm.
did my ancestry and I've got Scotland, you name it, and I've got it in my DNA. But
Hmm.
indigenous, most Puerto Ricans, most, are from some sort of Native American.
Hmm.
I think it goes way back, generationals, because my mother was a prostitute. My father's parents, I went home to them. And I think my grandmother might have been in that sort of industry as well, as far as, prostitution. There were some
Hmm.
things that I witnessed that I think, in hindsight, looking back, I'm like, oh yeah, I think that she was that as well. And I lived a part of my life too where pleasing men, since I was 2.5 years old, I have been used in a way that was just, I was a muse to be used by men. And I think that I thought that that was my purpose for a long time.
Hmm.
And that's just so sad.
It
That's
is.
just so sad. At the same time, I didn't really like men. I love men, but like at the same time, I had like this independence that, like, la resistance, I did not want to be like controlled by a man. Let's put it that way.
Yep, I'm following.
I I remember when I was about to age out. So in when I was in foster care, you would age out at 21. And then they, before you turn 21, they would set you up in an apartment or get you on a college or just kind of set you up as though a parent was there.
Mm-hmm.
Well, at the time, Giuliani ripped the funding away from foster care. And I, of course, I've always been intelligent, and I do think that that is part of my DNA. Academically, I just didn't know that I was smart, but I always had that fighter in me, like to research and find out and go fight. And so I went to Giuliani and I said, if you take the funding away, you are going to increase the homelessness rate. It's
Mm-hmm.
just going to be homelessness. We're going to be all over the streets. There's going to be all these kids that are going to get into drugs and crime. And so everything's going to go up. So I went there with like this thesis that I had written,
Fire.
right? Like
Yeah.
this,
With the
this, and
fire.
this is going to happen because of this. Do you know that dude looked me up and down with that look that I know oh too well from men? And looked me up and down and said, "You're very pretty. You'll do
Oh
just
God.
fine."
Oh my
And it was
God.
that statement that I made a promise to myself that I will never financially depend on a man ever.
Mm-hmm.
Wish I didn't because I made it very difficult for myself too. I lowered my standards.
Mm-hmm.
There were certain things I just made life more difficult for myself. So I don't think that that's the way to go either. I think there's a nice healthy balance.
Mm-hmm.
I am looking for someone that is, able to take care of me in a way that I can soften maybe and
Right into
be
your
feminine
feminine.
and not be that
Yes.
alpha female and not be like, oh, I got this, but somebody that will want to take care of me. I've never felt that before in my life.
Mm-hmm.
And so that will be nice. But I digress. But that statement made me so independent, but yet contradicting, I still felt like I needed to earn my place. I needed to earn love. So while I was paying for my own bills and I never shared a bill or shared accounts with this guy that I had been with for almost 2 decades, and nobody knows that. They think because he's a successful business owner that, oh, you're so lucky you're with this successful business owner. He's never paid any of my stuff ever.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But I always felt like I had to earn my place with him. So I would work for him. I would work after hours for him in the office, getting paid not very well when I first started out. Um, just giving my all to him
Mm-hmm.
in any capacity that he wanted, I would give to him.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not okay either. And that's where the
Mm-hmm.
self-abandonment comes in.
Your
And
mom.
that's where I think
Too.
women need to be still with themselves and know that if they get that feeling, that woman's intuition, that's a
Mm-hmm.
real thing.
It is.
And if it's us that swipes left on our own women's intuition, nah, I'm gonna ignore that gut feeling and go for it. Ask
I like the
20 other
swipe
people,
left.
what I should do. Meanwhile, I know. Yeah.
So true. Wow. No, that's something because that just makes me think about the work that your mom did. And then you weren't doing that kind of work, but you were in your relationships giving so much.
Yeah.
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 Wow. Wow, what
Yeah.
a story.
Yeah.
I know you have to tell us about the work you're doing today. Like you just make me think of like turning your pain into gold and making it into a purpose. Like what are you doing now as a result? Like how did your life shape the work you're doing today?
So it's been I had this dream of being a public speaker,
Mm,
and my
no, you're
entire
great.
life, I since I was that little girl at 2.5 years old, be quiet. And if I made a noise, I was head in the pillow, like literally suffocated. Silence from birth, pretty much, right? I
Hmm.
was locked in closets. I'm not to be heard. In foster care, I was to be seen, not heard. So on the sidelines, watching. If we had guests, if they're like a server at a high-end restaurant, right? If their water was down, I needed to fill it. If anybody needed anything, I needed to be on top of it.
Hmm.
And So I had to be silent there. In relationships, I oftentimes was silent, or I would have these rage moments.
Hmm.
With this most current, my ex, I was very jealous.
Hmm.
And we fought a lot, and it was a lot of me getting my rage out because I felt like he was safer than
Hmm.
other men have been. He wouldn't raise his voice, he wouldn't call me names. So this was, my bar was set pretty low. But he was where I felt safer to, I guess, release my anger. So again, he didn't have it easy either, all those years. And more recently, I was working for a company, and I remember somebody at that company, and I just don't want to say too much right this moment about that company, but somebody in executive leadership said, nobody wants to hear your story.
Mm.
You need to not tell anybody anything that you've been through. Just pretend you're somebody else.
What?
And because I despise that person so much, I made it a point to, in my head, I was like, I'm going to become a public speaker.
Yeah, do the opposite.
I will not be silenced anymore.
Mm.
And I am very unafraid. There's hardly anything that can come out that I know. I mean, I can get through anything,
Hmm.
anything. There's nothing that scares me.
Yeah. After.
Um, and I say that, in the political world climate right now, I need to, yeah, I don't want to be
Mm.
tested on that. But my point is, right now, I've been led to speak. I feel like my speaking out about what I've been through and holding space for other people and hoping that some of what I say lands and resonates, and learning and speaking to as many people as I can. I go see the sunrise almost every morning,
Hmm.
and I will be sitting there all alone with my journal, with my chihuahua, my beats on my head,
Chihuahua.
my headphones, like so many layers of defense, and people will still come up and sit beside me. The whole park is empty and they will still sit behind me and pour out their heart and soul. And so
Wow.
I learn from people every day, and then I get to hold space for people that I don't even know and that don't know me. And I think that that's incredible. I think
It
that's
is.
magical, and that's such an honor to be able to be there for people in that capacity where they can just walk away and they don't need to speak to you again. You just held them for a moment when they needed it.
We need more of that.
And so to speak, my goal is to speak as often as possible. And I am hoping to be locking in a more secure space with partnership with my foster care agency
That's
that I
beautiful.
had,
Yeah.
where I can look through my own records that I have, and I'm able to identify the gaps in where I can see. So pattern recognition is one of my gifts.
Yep.
And I can go through my records and I can immediately spot those that were concerned, those that were burnt out, those
Mm.
that were projecting. And so those caseworkers that were angrily writing their notes, and she wasn't cooperating, she was really bratty, she went missing for 2 days. I was held in a basement for 2 days, ma'am. So there are parts to this where I can help.
Make a difference.
I had two different paths here, trajectory, right? Let's talk about, I had two different paths. I could take my records, read through them, and I'm sure that I can call an attorney and go that route. Or I could take
Mm.
the path of helping and
Right.
partnering and helping to train and bridge those gaps and be able to really ripple throughout the foster care system what I learned, because it's not often that you get someone that has lived in foster care
Yeah.
experience, has human trafficking experience, homelessness. We didn't talk about that. I was homeless in
Oh
Harlem
my
when
God.
Giuliani ripped the funding away. So in the middle of winter in Harlem, in the Polo Grounds, so 125th over there. Um, educated. I worked in corporate. I helped build startups and build businesses. So all of this experience led me to here, and I realized my value. And I'm
Hmm.
not saying this from an egotistical point of it. This is just what it is. I have been put here to help, and I think that it is to help within the foster care realm, be able to gather teams and teach and learn and be in rooms with smarter people than me that we're just all collaborating to be able to really fix things that are happening, that still continue to happen to this day, because
Wow.
every foster child needs to learn how to self-regulate,
Yep.
so that way we don't disassociate. Every foster child needs to learn who they are, not who they're
Hmm.
told they are. When they're filling out these surveys for what they want to do in college, oftentimes it's who they think that their foster parent wants them to be, or who they think their boyfriend wants them to be, or what have you. Who are they? Let's
Hmm.
let's unlock that. Let's have a department where there's fashion shows put on by them and you
Oh,
don't have to go to NYU for it.
right.
Let's get a studio where they get to, sing and do their art. Let's do these, create these spaces for these kids so that they can practice who they want to be and who they really
Hmm.
are. And
Oh,
so I am hoping to lock down that partnership
I'm sure
here
you
soon.
will. Oh,
Yeah.
you definitely will. There's a song, I'm gonna have to write it down to make sure I send it to you. Then I just thought of the song as I was listening to your story. It was a song that I enjoyed when I was younger, but the song talks about being prepared for a special moment. So
Okay.
I'll
Yes,
send
I
it to you.
music
Yeah.
is the
Yeah.
best gift that anybody can give me. Every year for my
Yep.
birthday, I'm like, forget the gifts. I want a song. What song can
Oh,
you introduce me to?
oh, good. So definitely, I wrote it down. I'm gonna
That's my
definitely send
language.
it. Oh,
Like,
I love
that
it.
should just be a love language, music.
Yep. It is. It's so healing. It is. It's like healing and just perfect to get you through all the emotions, whether you're
Yes,
angry,
yes.
whatever the
At
case
different
is.
times too. Yeah,
Hmm. Oh,
for
definitely. So
sure.
I'll definitely send that song because that song just came
Thank
to
you.
mind as you were sharing your story. Oh, wow. Wow, what a story you have. Wow. My next question for you here too, as we close up a little bit, a couple of things. You can
Mhm.
spit it out in any order. Um, so first, I want to know if you have any traditions with your family that you have cultivated, and then just when you think about our future generation, what do you want them to know, and what do you
Mm,
want to be remembered for?
beautiful questions. So the traditions, I tried. I really tried. And that's the one thing that, and it kind of goes in with the next question. The thing that I want people, and I'm going to start from there and go backwards. The one thing that
Okay.
I would love people to know is to learn to be present.
Mm,
And in order to do that, we have to be still with ourselves. And that is not easy. It's like going to the gym, or when you're baking and you want to perfect your baking, or your paint, anything that you do in your life, you start a new job and you have to learn their CMS system or whatever. It's always hard in the beginning, always. And then your
mm,
hard becomes your new easy the more you practice it.
yeah.
And so becoming still with yourself and using any strings that work for you. Try them all, and whatever works will stick, and that becomes your web of security. I'm making this up as I go along. But
Fair enough.
like HZ music, nature, painting, you find out what works and it just gives you this stability, this net. But it also allows you to learn to be present.
Hmm.
I was not present when my children were growing up. I was with this guy who was not close to them. They were not close to him, but yet we were all cohabitating.
Hmm.
And I would try to have these traditions, and it just didn't work because he wasn't about sitting around a dinner table. he wasn't about trips. So everything became, I latched myself onto a guy because I was raised without a father and without
Yeah, and
parents.
all that you
And
went
so
through.
I was looking for love. And so I latched myself onto him, and he became my medicine.
Mm,
And so, therefore, I was never really present with my kids. I would do a lot of things with them, take them to Busch Gardens, go to birthday parties, go to skate parks. They always had, beautiful Christmases and Easters, things, those traditions I tried to keep as much as possible with gifts. But they all come to me now, they're older. So, Donovan is 23, Leah is 20. And they'll say, "Oh, remember when we did this, 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 and this?" And I'll say, "I
mm,
don't remember." They're
mm,
like, "Yeah, mom, you were there. You took us." I might have taken you. I wasn't there. My mind was not
mm,
there. What does that teach us? That teaches us that we can physically be somewhere, but when our mind is gone and worried about 50 other things, we're not enjoying the present moment. It's not going to remain in our memory.
mm.
And so
No.
that's why it is so important to be present, especially for the single moms and the chaos that you guys are in, because I was there.
Mhm,
I was with a guy, but I was still a single mom. I was still raising them, right? And it was still very, very difficult. And that's the one thing that I would say that I regret in life is just not being present with my kids. I cannot change the past, and the past, it's in the rearview mirror, and I've had these difficult conversations with them. And my son, a very difficult conversation with him was, I feel like I was abandoned by you, because he
mm,
chose to live with his dad when he was 12. And I
mm,
felt like that might be the best thing. And I didn't fight for him. I didn't give him up his rights. I refused to do that, but I didn't fight, and he expected me to go after him. And so we had to have these difficult conversations.
mhm,
But now, every moment that we are together, I make sure that I am fully there.
mhm.
And so if I can give anything to any parent that's out there that's mind is just everywhere else, is just don't wait until you're, older and your kids are older to heal, if you can start working on that now,
Mhm,
because that is so important, to give your kids the gift of being present. And
mhm.
so that's what I hope to do with this position and this partnership, is to teach people to be present with
So true.
self-regulation, with healing, with anything that works, finding what works for them, what are the bricks for their bridge,
Mhm.
and what works for them, because what works for me may not work for somebody else. Self-regulation is key. That is one that every human needs. But
Yeah.
even in that, different types of breath work may work for me and not for somebody else. So that's
Mhm,
important to differentiate. And I just hope to leave people with that, with just to be present, to get in touch with your inner child and to play.
mhm.
We're human, and we're meant to love, we're meant to play, we're meant to live like the Native Americans did, to be
Oh,
honest,
I
to the
love it.
indigenous people did. We are meant to live like that, and just enjoy nature and respect it, and build more of each other up. Yeah.
That's beautiful. Well, I will say it's never too late to start new traditions
That's
going
right.
forward. So,
Well, I do
um,
have to. Oh, yeah. So every Saturday, my daughter and I take dance class at
oh,
Project
that's good.
Alchemy. Yeah, and so we got back into like choreography and more contemporary dance.
Uh-huh.
And so we've been doing that. We've started with yoga, but ever since I've been on my own in my new place, she comes over every weekend, and we will
Uh-huh.
walk, and we will have lunch and coffee and talk, and usually do some
Oh,
sort of fitness or exercise. So that's our tradition. Yeah.
oh, I love that. That's beautiful. Oh, you have such a beautiful story and just your
Well, thank you.
transformation. It's just very inspiring.
Thank
If our
you.
guests want to connect with you, where can they find you?
I'm mostly on Instagram at Catalina Rises. I'm also Catalina Rises at gmail.com. If there's any questions, I love taking anonymous questions, or
Mhm.
anything that might be, and then doing like a video about it. So that is my new path there. So I can just kind of ripple out there things that because I've been through so much. And I think that the more of us that speak out about things, great. That's so it becomes normal, right? And
Hmm.
hardship is part of life, but how do we get through it? And so I welcome in any questions, anything that I could learn, anything at all. Yeah.
Oh, okay, great. I'll definitely leave all your information in the show notes, so that'll be great.
Awesome.
Well, this
Thank you
was
so much.
beautiful. I love our conversation.
I look forward to hearing that song.
Yes, yes, I'll definitely get that to you.
Awesome.
Awesome, awesome. All right.